Most of us have something that we really care about. Maybe it's a hobby, something that you do outside of work for fun. Maybe you paint or make model train sets. Whatever it is, for many of us, it can help give some meaning, bringing a temporary refuge from the stresses of everyday living. For others, it can be the only thing that's keeping them alive. This is the story of the world machine. Franz Gsellman was born in 1910 in a little Austrian village called Adelsbach. He was quite an introverted boy who had big dreams of becoming an engineer, even from a young age. These dreams, however, were never to become a reality, as when Gsellman graduated, he had only undergone 4 years of schooling, and, coming from a long line of farmers, he did not have much choice anyway but to become a farmer himself. So Gsellman took over his father's farm and lived on with a quiet fascination for machines. He married the maid Matilda, and they had a son, and Gsellman kept working at his farm, never once leaving the village of Adelsbach. Until one day, the 1958 Brussels World Fair, more commonly known as Expo 58, was the first major world expo since the end of the Second World War. Among the things featured at this fair was the Poema Electronique, an exhibition which consisted of an electroacoustic piece played through the Philips Pavilion, accompanied by a light show, which sounded like this. And also featured at the fair, disturbingly enough, was a human zoo. But most remembered, and most important to this story, is the Atomium. Nowadays a landmark structure for Belgium, the Atomium is a 102-meter, which is 335 feet, for those of you metrically challenged, tall model of a unit cell of an iron crystal. The top sphere of this structure is actually a restaurant with a panoramic view of Brussels. Gsellman read about this in a local newspaper, and it seems something about this structure caused some old, almost dead piece of him to spring back to life. Gsellman, now all of 48 years old, decided that he needed to leave the village of Adelsbach for the first time in his life, to go on a pilgrimage of sorts. He left his wife and son at home and traveled for 3 days to Brussels to see the Atomium in person. When he finally reached it, his old dream of engineering completely returned. After what you might call a kind of epiphany, Gsellman came back home with a mission. When I saw the Atomium, as in a dream, I saw my finished machine, Gsellman would later be quoted as saying. Now back at his farm in Adelsbach, Gsellman immediately began the construction of a miniature model of the Atomium. After this model was finished, he started building something greater. He began traveling around with a large backpack, picking up whatever he found that he considered interesting, such as various bric-a-bracs from flea markets and scrap stores. And when his backpack was filled, he would fill his pockets instead. He brought all of this home to his farm and locked himself in a room with it, relentlessly tinkering away at whatever it was that he was working on. This continued for 8 years, with Gsellman having traveled to both Graz and Vienna looking for more knickknacks, not having told a single soul what he was working on. Never once explaining to his wife why he would leave the field and retreat into his room, the windows of which he had covered with a thick fabric. After these 8 years, Gsellman finally decided to try to activate his machine, which failed, instead causing a blackout across the entire village of Adelsbach. However, just a few days later, he did get it to work, and he decided that it was finally time to show his family just what it was that he had been working on. When Gsellman opened the door to the room and first showed what it was that he had poured so much of his time into, his wife did not know how to react. Before her stood a giant machine, which was later dubbed the World Machine, rattling and whirling in every color of the rainbow, blinking brightly. The rest of the family as well was also not as enthusiastic, nor as supportive as Gsellman may have hoped, especially as he would not explain the purpose of the machine. They supposedly even threatened to destroy his machine and throw him out of the house. The response from the small town of Adelsbach, his neighbors and others, was not too positive either. Gsellman was mocked relentlessly by the people of the little village for his creation. He was known, during times when the mockery from the townsfolk became too much for him, or just times of general desperation, to retreat up into his attic, lay on the ground, and grieve. This picture, shot by the photographer Franz Gsellman, who followed Gsellman for about 6 weeks, captures one of these moments. But, even shut off from the rest of the world, crying alone in the attic of his house, he was not ready to give up on his machine, for he had, as he would often say, been given the gift by God. As the years went by, Gsellman kept working on his machine. In the end, it has been stated that inside the machine could be found thousands of parts, including a Christmas tree stand, a porcelain eagle, a Dutch mini windmill, a toy space capsule along with 4 space travelers, a drying hood, 5 crucifixes, 5 spark plugs, 7 alternators, 18 fans, 20 V-belts, 25 motors and a hula hoop, tires, 64 bird whistles, 200 light bulbs, and no less than 242 silver screws. And in the center of this world machine was the model Atomium, which he had built so many years ago. But Gsellman still would never explain what this machine was for. The year was 1981, and Gsellman was 71 years old, when, much to the surprise of his wife, after working on it for 21 years, he suddenly said that his machine was finished. That night, Franz Gsellman went to bed, and he never woke up again. He had passed on in his sleep, his machine left abandoned, with no one able to work it. However, in 1993, an Austrian company took it upon themselves to restore the World Machine. Today, the World Machine is the central exhibition in the Gsellman Family Museum, and it draws visitors to Edelbach every single day, far from the ridicule it originally faced. Most of us have something we really care about. For Gsellman, that was his World Machine. But in the end, what was it for? What sort of functional purpose did the World Machine serve? Well, it's obvious really, isn't it? It made dreams come true.